Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
Anthropodic aliens with a knack for devouring, conquering, and expanding throughout the universe. Dark, deep magics that are more ancient than the stars. A never-ending swarm of biomass that refuses to give in or moving on the path to genetic perfection. Today we delve back into comparing the sci-fi worlds of Warhammer, Destiny, and now, Starcraft. There's a lot of crossover in ideas between these series. Of course, they all take inspirations from the same places. Starcraft came from Warcraft, which itself was originally pitched as a Warhammer fantasy game. So it also takes the same ideas where Warhammer 40k is fantasy, but in space. Starcraft, in many ways, becomes Warcraft, but in space. The same can be said for Destiny, taking tons of fantasy tropes from magical wizards, to the Force, to knights and goblins and more, but making it sci-fi instead. And as such, these very insectoid species, the Tyranid fleet of Warhammer, the Hive pantheon in Destiny, and the Zerg swarm in Starcraft all feature similar ideas. With their similarities, I want to bring you along today as we learn about these various factions and discover which one is the most powerful among them. Where that inspiration comes from, mostly Starship Troopers and Alien, there's also a small yet noteworthy contender who just quite didn't make the cut. The Tyranids from Helldivers. We've done a deep dive on them in this episode of An Idiot's Guide, but there was really not that much lore behind the Helldivers as the other three we have today. So I just want to acknowledge that I thought about it, but we will not be bringing the Tyranids into the discussion today. This is our third Destiny, Warhammer, and now Starcraft crossover video. Check these out afterwards if you haven't already to get an idea of the battles between Space Marines and the Guardians. But without further delay, let's get started. Before comprehensible thought, in a time before time, a species of beings known as the Krill that were brought to a hellish world of poisoned skies, toxic oceans, and carnivorous clouds, beaten down by the current guard of the light, warring within themselves and always striving for more, until three brave of the Krill descended into the deep of their home, finding ancient worms that needed to feast on conquest. In exchange for immortality, these three were each given a worm's larva that would reside within them, feeding the worm through themselves as an avatar. Once the worms became too ravenous, one stood upon the others, killed them for their power, and would slay the worm deity Akka. With its power, this Krill of the Hive had ascended. He was now Oryx, the Taken King, bringing his sisters back, Xivu Arath in an act of war, and Savathun in an act of cunning. The way of the sword was perfected in Oryx's strategy. The Hive would bring in other Krill by want or by force, each of them adopting the worm's larva and spreading out death in efforts to feed their masters. The Hive had become the most complex, multi-level marketing scheme in the galaxy. The Hive are insectoid species of alien that live with a symbiotic larva within them, larvae of the worm gods that feed their powers. They often grow in stages. First, the Thralls, who become acolytes, who then evolve into the Knights or Wizards. Ogres being a Thrall tainted by a wizard's magic. Different sects of the Hive also differ based on their origin. Savathun's Hive are more pale, whereas the Taken King's son Crota features a brood who are stockier and bulkier. A religious series of rituals and profane rite lead the Hive. They are guided by sword logic, an idea that the strongest survive and one must prove themselves in order to ascend. Once a member of the Hive has ascended, they may carve out a throne world of their own, an underlying plane of existence within the ascendant plane, making it a secondary world within a secondary plane where the Hive are stronger, more powerful, and the only place where a member of the ascendant Hive can truly be killed. For if the ascendant is killed in real space, they will simply return to their throne world. The only way to truly kill a Hive god is to kill them in their own throne world. A task insurmountably difficult as the laws of reality are changed within their own realm. Using biomechanical weapons and traversal, the Hive rely on summons and ritual to channel darkness from the Witness, using this magic to their advantage as they cut off the light and kill the Guardians who may oppose them. Cutting through the fabric of reality, the Hive use sword logic in flight, literally cutting through the real world as we know it to travel intergalactically, powering arcane locks and other technologies using the souls of the mortal realm. They are a spiritual species that forces the natural orders of reality to work in their favor. Constantly evolving and changing, the Hive are adamant in changing to face their enemies, a fate that led the Witch Queen, Savathun, to even accept the light and share it among her lucent hive, creating light-bearing acolytes, knights, and wizards that could fight with the same strength as guardians and could kill the vanguard, as well as their mastery of the darkness-based incantations they often use. Arguably the strongest of the Hive, Oryx, the Taken King, alone he would be an incredibly unstoppable challenger. A being with a sword so sharp he could split quarks in two. His planet-sized warship made of the corpse of a dead god. Only killable in his throne world, which even if one had the ascendant nature of the Hive or the light of a guardian to enter said throne world to begin with, they would still have to fight Oryx on his own terms. A feat that is near impossible without paracausality. The Taken King and his dependents can also take from the real world, bringing a creature to the ascendant plane and breaking them, returning the being to the material plane covered in a membrane of darkness that feeds upon the light, making creatures and soldiers of all sect from any species into tools for the Taken Hive to use in their conquest towards the finality of sword logic, the final shape, and the death of everything. At another edge of the galaxy emerges multiple broods of swarms, designed and made to combine with another species to form the perfect army of hybrids, before breaking apart, gaining their independence, and choosing to become the perfect species, not just to further the army of one specific being, but for their own meanings. An overmind, first separated from the extreme swarm, later finding its own footing and connection to the rest of the swarm, something different, separate, but yet the same, connected in ways unseen, driving this unrelenting force to push forward and finish their directive. The Zerg swarm, seeking to assimilate and conquer other beings to take fruitful elements from other species across the galaxy, making themselves more perfect in the process, seeking out amongst the stars to spread their seed across the galaxy. Often slave-based creatures that demand a strong leader to be at the chain of command, the Zerg falling apart and cannibalizing themselves is left to pester on their own. But when properly led on, the Zerg can repopulate a colony in a short amount of time from a single body, with the ability to cut warp holes in space and travel faster than light, breathe in space and survive for a nearly infinite amount of time. With no technology of their own, the Zerg are entirely dependent on their power structure and the rapid evolution of their base genetic code. One single Zerg is not a sentient thinking creature, but still can possess some limits of cunning natural instinct, but their strength normally comes from the pure overwhelming force of the creatures gathered together. Born with claws that can shred metal, spines that fire like bullets, and spells of immense energy that ward over their foes and even allow some Zerg to take the shape of their enemies, infiltrating, consuming, and killing their opponents. While very resistant to many things, the Zerg are also especially weakened by various forms of radiation, a dangerous threat when left to fester, but easily dismissed once their pyramid of hierarchy collapses, and the struggles from a power vacuum drive the Zerg into a bloody civil war.
We broke their hive fleet. Soon, their foulness will be but a memory. That is what the preachers say.
From reaches beyond this galaxy comes a force unrelenting. Branches of a greater whole known as the Great Devourer. Links between ancient aliens in our own galaxy that prelude a long-forgotten first invasion, now being drawn to the new fleets that scour and rip worlds to shreds. There is many, as there have always been, but there is also only one, the Hive Mind, a single powerful force that directs every single unit, every arm, every leg, like gears in a machine, or more accurately, cells in the body, driven by a larger force to work in the total and extreme benefit of the Hive. The Tyranids of Warhammer are a ferocious force who launch from planet to planet. The first day they drop, they might go unseen. For weeks they devour and consume. By the time a world realizes that there's an invasion, the claws of the fleet have already dug in. A distress call is sent out, but in as little as 100 days, by the time reinforcements arrive, the planet has already been overtaken by the swarm. The top of a world scraped clean of every ounce of biomatter within. A new fleet born of this feast to shoot off onto the next world. A force so ravenous that some of the Imperium would rather let the Tyranids take a world, wait for them to gather all in one place before blowing up the planet entirely, taking as many of the Tyranids with the celestial body in one malevolent move, rather than to face the beasts head on. The Tyranids are not many species working together in the regular sense. They possess a type of advanced biotechnology that allows them to form ships, weapons, and everything they need to conquer the galaxy and consume all life with nothing but the bodies of living matter. Every gun is a separate creature melded and forced onto its host. A symbiotic, sometimes parasitic relationship that makes the Tyranids not working together, but literally becoming extensions of one another. A level of connection seen similarly with Astartes and their power armor. It is impossible to tell where one Tyranid ends and where another begins. This grotesque relationship shaping their force of rapidly adaptive creatures that can evolve to persist in every environment against any enemy. So much so that it's thought impossible to be able to document each and every variation of Tyranid, as they are practically unlimited in their possibility of form. Even what has been seen of the Tyranids, hive fleets that have protruded into the galaxy at a steady pace, each larger than the last, hive fleets Behemoth, Kraken, and most recently, Leviathan. A force so large it had spurred the Imperium to draw on every single resource they have to combat it, while making temporary alliances with the Tau, Eldar, Necrons, orcs, and even demons in the pursuit from removing this unshakable foe from their territory. As of what we've already seen, even Leviathan is thought to be a scouting party for an even larger fleet that threatens the entirety of life in the Milky Way. The autonomy of the Tyranid hive mind is manifested in their Swarm Lord, a technically unkillable creature that stands as the current pinnacle of Tyranid evolution. Designed by the hive mind to be a strategist and overcome every enemy the swarm encounters. Whenever the Swarm Lord is defeated, an exact copy is created by the hive mind with all the memories, thoughts, and evolutions from the previous. But this time it would be better, smarter, and stronger. An evolving champion that will never lose twice. Coming back into the fray with the knowledge of how it lost and how to avoid that a second time. It's unknown just how one might defeat the Tyranids, as the full scale and power of the hive mind has not even been revealed to the galaxy in the few hundred years since they've begun invasions across the Milky Way. But one can assume there may be a center, a true source at the top of that hive mind that leads all the way along. Or the hive mind may just be the overall connection between every last Tyranid, meaning that to defeat the leader, you literally have to defeat every last Tyranid. Every strategy the Imperium has for killing Tyranids focuses on depriving them of food when possible, or holding out in great feats of ruthless attrition. Some will even point orcs at the Tyranids to go keep both sides at bay, but that's putting an endless horde of soldiers who love to fight and get stronger as they do, against a force that endlessly consumes and also becomes stronger as it does. So while the fighting will keep them at bay, there is eventually going to be a winner, and that winner will be unrecognizably strong. Across the stars, we have 3 factions of bugs. Now, if they came to the center and battled one another in a massive 3-way war, what would that look like? Firstly, I think the Zerg would be the first to go. They may be able to absorb some sects of the worm hive or terminid swarm, but compared to the other two, the Zerg are the least organized and the least uniform. Once the Overmind is defeated, as hard as that may be, that's it. Then they will devolve and cannibalize their own ranks while still fending off 2 oppressive forces, something that has happened multiple times by now. What of the Worm Hive and the Tyranid Hive, then? This is where Destiny, Paracausality, and Warhammer over-the-top nonsense come to face each other once again. Even the strongest of the Tyranids, the Swarm Lord, could not battle Oryx at his full might, but I don't think they could kill one another either. With the workings of the Throne Worlds for the Hive Gods effectively making them immortal to the Tyranids, as only Ascendant Hive and paracausal entities like the Guardians can even enter a Throne World, making the deities like Oryx and Savathun untouchable from the Tyranid swarm. An important note about the Tyranids is that they have no presence in the warp. In Warhammer 40k, the warp works a lot like the Ascendant Plane from Destiny, where souls are represented in an immaterial place. But Tyranids, as pieces of a larger whole, are known as a shadow in the warp. As such, they would not have the realm-altering abilities that would allow them into a throne world to attempt the killing of a hive god unless the door was opened for them.
What's strange to me is that she's vulnerable here. Why would she just let us walk in?
Where the Tyranids excel is in feet-on-the-ground infantry battles, featuring their parasitic biology and redundant organs, second brains, living ammo, and the ability to sustain ranks through the bodies of their own forces. The Tyranids can outnumber and overwhelm the thralls and acolytes of the Hive, possibly only running into an issue with the greater wizards, witches, or knights, or light-bearers who, like chaos demons, offer no source of food. The Guardians and Lucent Hive alike don't leave behind a tangible corpse as they are manifested in the light, meaning they could battle the Hive for years at a time, starving the forces they battle against in the process. If we're left to the Tyranids and Hive gods, I see one of two scenarios playing out. If the Tyranids have a host like the Zerg, if the Hive mind is led by a single powerful entity that has a pulse that can be killed, Oryx and his Taken, Savathun and her Lucent, the Hive gods who cannot be killed, could come out on top by battling to the source of the Tyranids and striking at the heart, attempting to kill the true Swarm Lord, clawing out a desperate victory for the sword logic. By now you may be wondering if it's possible for Oryx to make Tyranids into Taken. Why not make the Swarm Lord and any other powerful Tyranids work for him in the fight against them? Well, in the same vein that makes the Tyranids immune to demon possession, they aren't individuals, but all smaller parts of the hive mind whole. To take a creature is to torture their soul in the Ascendant Plane, something that cannot be done to the Tyranid hive mind. But if the hive mind is a collective, and to kill it is to kill every last scrap of Tyranid in existence, I think the best case scenario for the worshippers of darkness is an eternal stalemate, to hope that the few unkillable of the Hive live on eternally. The Taken not want for the conquest of all, but to combine the darkness with the light in the pursuit of the Witness's final shape at the death of the universe. So if anything, the Tyranids consuming the galaxy and being left with nothing to feast upon, slowly burning away and falling apart with nowhere else to go, would be a net positive for the Taken King. This was the same strategy employed by the Necrons, who should have no reason to clash with the Tyranids, but the Necrons seek to one day becoming living, biological creatures once more, making the Tyranid threat of extinction across the galaxy much more present for them. Oryx and the Hive do not have this issue. They can wait for the final shape, and the greatest threat against this strategy would be a civil war within the Hive's own ranks, as sword logic dictates the strongest survive, leaving Oryx and his sisters to kill one another in their cowardice, hiding away in their own throne worlds. What do you think comes out on top? The magic and occult deities of Destiny's Hive? The Witch Queen's Lucent fighting back forevermore? The Tyranids' endless swarm that relent not and push on in pursuit to consume? Or do you think the Zerg somehow have a say in the race and I counted them out too early? Let me know in the comments below. For videos like this, we're gonna start taking a vote. Start your comment with one word, your winner, the Hive, Tyranids, or the Zerg. Then tell me why you think they would win. By the next episode, I will reveal the winner of the battle as decided directly by the audience. Otherwise, that's this. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, or become a channel member today to get even more. Stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.